There was once a young man named Kenneth. He was a happy person who had a good life. Kenneth had a girlfriend named Bella, whom he loved very much. Kenneth and Bella had been dating for 2 years. Their love for each other was strong. Kenneth would visit Bella often at her house to spend time with her. One day, Kenneth decided to go and visit Bella as he usually did. Little did he know, this visit would change his life forever. When Kenneth reached Bella's house and knocked on the door, there was no answer. This was strange because Bella always opened the door quickly when he came over. Kenneth tried the door, and it was unlocked. He went inside, calling out Bella's name, but there was no response. A bad feeling started to form in the pit of his stomach. As Kenneth walked further inside, he couldn't believe the sight before his eyes. There on the floor lay Bella, unmoving and lifeless. Next to her body was a large kitchen knife covered in blood. Kenneth rushed over and fell to his knees beside Bella. He shook her body and called her name over and over, but she didn't move or make a sound. Tears streamed down his face as the reality sank in. His beloved Bella was dead. In his state of shock and grief, Kenneth reached out and picked up the bloody knife from the floor. At that moment, Bella's sister Linda entered the house. She saw Kenneth holding the knife next to Bella's body and let out a scream of horror. Linda could not believe what she was seeing. Her beloved sister lying dead, and Kenneth holding the bloody knife that seemed to have killed her. "You monster! How could you do this to my sister?" Linda screamed at Kenneth. Without waiting for an explanation, Linda quickly pulled out her phone and dialed the police. "Please help! My sister has been killed and the man who did it is still here," she cried into the phone. Within minutes, the police arrived at the house. They saw the gruesome scene, Bella's body, the knife, and Kenneth kneeling beside her, stunned. The officers didn't hesitate. They pulled Kenneth away and roughly handcuffed him as he tried to explain what happened. But his pleas fell on deaf ears. To the police, the evidence was clear. Kenneth had murdered his girlfriend in cold blood. Kenneth found himself locked behind bars, still struggling to make sense of the nightmare he was living. He shouted out again and again that he did not kill Bella, that he loved her more than life itself. But with the weight of evidence against him, nobody believed his claims of innocence. Bella's family and friends looked at Kenneth as a betrayer, a monster who took away their loved one. Kenneth sat in the cold, dreary jail cell, his heart heavy with sadness over Bella's death. As he leaned against the wall, memories of how they first met came flooding back to him. It was 2 years ago at a small restaurant in town. Kenneth had gone there to grab a quick lunch during his break from work. That's when he first locked eyes with Bella. She was a vision of beauty, tall, elegant, with skin like velvet, and a smile that captured Kenneth's heart instantly. Kenneth mustered up his courage and approached Bella, introducing himself. But Bella was not so easily won over. She gave him a playful, teasing smile before claiming she had to leave for an appointment. As she walked away, Kenneth knew he was hopelessly smitten. Over the next few weeks, Kenneth went out of his way to keep running into Bella, always trying to charm her. But she was a tease, constantly playing hard to get. She would engage him in conversation only to back off when he tried getting too close. Yet Kenneth saw this as a thrilling challenge to win her over. Finally, after nearly 2 months of Kenneth's persistent yet respectful pursuit, Bella agreed to go on a date with him. She claimed she had grown impressed by his dedication and kind heart. That first date at Kenneth's favorite restaurant was filled with laughter, deep conversation, and the undeniable spark of a blossoming connection. From there, their romance bloomed like a beautiful flower. Bella loved Kenneth's sense of humor and loyal nature. Kenneth was enamored with Bella's intelligence and zest for life. They spent countless hours just walking through parks, holding hands, sharing their hopes and dreams, two souls that had found their perfect match in one another. The memories brought a sad smile to Kenneth's face as he sat in the cell. The woman he loved more than life itself was gone forever. Framed for a crime he didn't commit, his only comfort were the cherished moments they shared. As Kenneth sat there, more memories of his life with Bella came flooding back. He remembered the time she surprised him by cooking his favorite jollof spaghetti for his birthday. Her smile shined so bright when he took that first delicious bite. He reminisced about the road trips they would take, driving for hours with no particular destination, simply enjoying each other's company. Bella's melodic laughter filling the car as she snapped selfies of them being silly together. Kenneth's heart ached when he thought about the little things, like the way Bella would scrunch her nose at him in that adorable way whenever he told a bad joke, or how she would rest her head on his shoulder while they cuddled up watching TV in the evenings. To the world, Kenneth was now a reviled killer. But in his heart and memories, Bella was still so vibrantly alive. Her kindness, her beauty, her love. Those were the things that made his life whole. And now she was gone, ripped away in unimaginable circumstances. Tears streamed down Kenneth's face as he clutched the only photo he had of Bella in his cell. He silently vowed to himself that no matter what, he would find out the truth of what happened and clear his name. If not for himself, then to honor the love they shared. Days turned into weeks as Kenneth sat confined in that tiny cell. He knew his only hope was to convince someone of his innocence. Finally, he was granted a meeting with a lawyer whom his family had hired to represent him, a seasoned defense attorney named Edward. Kenneth poured his heart out to Edward, recounting every detail of that fateful day when he discovered Bella's body. He spoke of their deep love and how he could never fathom harming her. Edward listened carefully, studying Kenneth's expressions and body language. After Kenneth had finished, Edward gave him a firm nod. He stated he believed Kenneth was telling the truth about his innocence. Edward promised to conduct his own investigation into what really happened, leaving no stone unturned to find the real culprit. In the weeks that followed, Edward worked tirelessly. He interviewed every witness, examined all the physical evidence over and over, and chased every possible lead. Slowly but surely, an unsettling pattern began to emerge that contradicted the prosecution's case against Kenneth. Finally, Edward requested another meeting with Kenneth. With a grave expression, he explained that his findings appeared to reveal a deeper conspiracy at play. Someone, for reasons not yet clear, had meticulously framed Kenneth for Bella's murder. Kenneth was stunned. He couldn't fathom who could have such hatred against him and his beloved Bella. But a glimmer of hope began to rise in his heart, hope that he could finally prove his innocence and discover the true killer's identity. "Kenneth, my investigation has uncovered some deeply troubling information," Edward said gravely. "The more I have dug into this case, the more it appears you were deliberately framed for Bella's murder." Kenneth felt his heart rate quicken at Edward's words. Could it be true? Was there really a conspiracy to make him look guilty? "Look at this." Edward handed Kenneth photographs of the crime scene. The way the knife was positioned, the lack of defensive wounds on Bella's, the complete absence of your fingerprints despite holding the weapon. It was all too neat, too perfect of a setup. Then there are these phone records I obtained. Bella received several suspicious calls and texts from an unknown number in the days leading up to her death. Whoever was behind this plotted it methodically. Kenneth's mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. Who could have wanted his Bella dead? And why frame him in such an elaborate way? Unknown to them, a mysterious figure was monitoring Edward's every move and uncovering the truth. Keeping to the shadows, this person knew their carefully constructed plan was now at risk of unraveling completely. "So you believe me then?" You think I really can be proven innocent? Kenneth asked Edward, his eyes brimming with a mixture of hope and sadness. Without a doubt, Edward stated firmly, and I promise you, I will not rest until I expose the real perpetrator behind this heinous act. Your name will be cleared, Kenneth. With a newfound resolve, Kenneth vowed to remain strong and patient. He knew the path ahead would not be easy, but the chance to finally uncover the truth about what happened to his beloved Bella was worth enduring any struggle. For the first time since this nightmare began, a glimmer of light had pierced through the darkness. As Kenneth sat in his cell, eagerly awaiting Edward's next moves to clear his name, another cherished memory with Bella surfaced. It was a quiet evening at home. They were cuddled up on the couch, bodies intertwined, looking deeply into each other's eyes with pure adoration. In that moment, the rest of the world fell away. "Have you ever thought about our future together?" Bella asked softly, resting her head on Kenneth's chest. She traced her fingers along his arm tenderly. Kenneth smiled and kissed the top of her head. "Every single day, my love. I think about spending the rest of my life with you by my side." Bella's eyes lit up with excitement. "And children? How many little ones did you want us to have running around?" Kenneth's face flashed with hesitation. "To be honest, I'm not sure I want children," he admitted cautiously, gauging her reaction. Bella furrowed her brow, looking puzzled. Kenneth quickly explained his reasoning. "I want you all to myself forever. No sharing your love and attention," he said only half-jokingly as he caressed her beautiful face. "Once children come into the picture, you may love me less." Bella let out a bright laugh that lifted Kenneth's worries instantly. "You silly man," she said, giving him that dazzling smile. She pulled him into a tight embrace, holding him close. "My love for you only multiplies, it doesn't divide. Children would simply allow me to love more," she explained warmly. "And you already have every piece of my heart." The memory flooded Kenneth's eyes with tears of both heartache from losing Bella and joy from the boundless love they shared so purely. If only he could go back to that moment. Kenneth gently wiped the tears from his eyes as the bittersweet memory faded. He stared down at the photo of Bella, smiling face that he kept safely tucked away. "My love, my heart, I will get to the bottom of this," he whispered, tracing her image with his fingertip. "No matter what it takes, I will uncover the truth about who did this to you." Aries of firm knocks at the cell door shook Kenneth from his reverie. He looked up to see Edward standing there, arms loaded with file folders. "I may have found something," Edward stated, wasting no time. He pulled up a chair and began spreading out documents in front of Kenneth. "I've been digging deeper into Bella's life, every detail no matter how small," Edward explained. "That's when I uncovered these financial records showing some very large sums of money being wired into her bank accounts from an anonymous source." Kenneth's eyes went wide with disbelief. Bella never mentioned anything about having extra money lately. What could this mean? "And look here, these deposits started coming in regularly about 2 months before her death," Edward said grimly. "My gut tells me this could be a key part of the puzzle." A million questions raced through Kenneth's mind. Why was Bella getting payments like this? From whom? And did this have something to do with her murder? For the first time, Kenneth felt his resolve being tested. As the rabbit hole went deeper, he worried where it might lead. But he knew he couldn't give up now, not when he was so close to finally uncovering the truth. "We have to keep digging," Kenneth stated firmly, fear and doubt taking a backseat to his determination. "I don't care what rock you have to turn over next. Find out who was sending that money to Bella and why. That's the key to proving my innocence once and for all." Edward gave Kenneth a resolute nod, leaning back in his chair as he processed this new development. "You're right. This money trail could be pivotal," he agreed, stroking his chin pensively. Clearly, someone had reasons for sending those large sums to Bella, reasons they were willing to go to sickening lengths to cover up. Edward's eyes narrowed as the gravity of the situation became clearer. Over the next few days, Edward traced the money transfers with the fervor of a bloodhound. He made countless calls to financial institutions, performed meticulous computer database searches, and even brought in certain individuals for interrogation. No stone was being left unturned in pursuit of the anonymous source behind those payments. Edward had thrown himself fully into getting to the bottom of this conspiracy. Meanwhile, Kenneth spent every agonizing moment behind bars racked with anxiety over what this new avenue of investigation might reveal. What if the money inadvertently led back to something incriminating about Bella's own activities? He quickly shook his head, dispelling that notion. No, not his Bella. She was an angel, the purest soul he knew. There had to be an explanation, one that would only further cement her, and his own, innocence. Kenneth's pensive pacing was interrupted by the frantic arrival of Edward at his cell door, eyes wide with urgency. "I've found the one sending those payments," Edward exclaimed, trying to catch his breath. "And it's a name you'll definitely recognize." Kenneth felt his heart stop as Edward stated the name. In an instant, everything suddenly made sense. All the pieces, violently scattered before, now formed a clear, horrifying picture. His knees buckled as he collapsed to the ground, overwhelmed by the revelation. Kenneth's world was spinning. He drew in ragged breaths, trying to steady himself against the weight of Edward's staggering revelation. No, it cannot be," Kenneth muttered, eyes unfocused and shaking his head vehemently in denial. The name Edward had uttered, the person behind those mysterious payments to Bella, was one Kenneth knew better than anyone. It was someone extremely close to them both. Flashes of memory stormed Kenneth's mind, joyful moments spent in the company of this person he had loved and trusted, who had been a constant presence throughout his relationship with Bella. How could they have done this? What motive could they possibly have to want his beautiful Bella's dead? And to frame him for the grisly act on top of it all? It was unconscionable, unthinkable. "I'm so sorry, Kenneth," Edward said solemnly. "But all the evidence is there, tying this person directly to the money and by extension, the crime." He laid out phone records, photographs, even CCTV footage. An undeniable trail directly implicating this person Kenneth had known so well. Tears streamed down Kenneth's face as he struggled to make sense of the truth now unfolding before him. Part of him still stubbornly rejected it, clinging to the image he had of this person. But the growing mountain of proof was irrefutable. Someone he trusted had betrayed him in the most venomous way imaginable, by taking away his world, his everything. Bella was dead, and the person responsible was her own.
Before we continue, if you're enjoying this fascinating folktale, subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss out on more entertaining stories like this. It's free. By subscribing, you help support our community in creating and sharing these captivating tales from cultures worldwide. New uploads arrive weekly. Subscribe now to never miss an upload.
Kenneth's face drained of all color as the horrible truth was laid bare before him. The person responsible for murdering his beloved Bella, the one who had so meticulously plotted to frame him for the crime, was Bella's own sister, Linda. Memory after memory flashed through Kenneth's mind. Birthdays, family gatherings, quiet evenings together. Linda had been like a sister to him, and he adored her almost as much as Bella did. They were a trio bound tighter than blood. How could the same woman who watched him and Bella's love blossom with joyful support be capable of such monstrous evil? What sinister darkness could have consumed her heart? The evidence was damning. CCTV footage obtained from a nearby residence showed Linda entering Bella's home on that fateful day, long before Kenneth had arrived. Phone records placed Linda's presence there for over an hour before she encountered Kenneth, kneeling horror-struck beside her slain sister's body. Even more chilling were the financial transaction records tying Linda directly to the mysterious, large payments that had been filtering into Bella's accounts. It was her money, her cover-up to conceal some nefarious motive. Why? Kenneth croaked out between anguished sobs, his heart shattering into pieces all over again. Why would she do this to Bella, to me, to our family? He wept uncontrollably, unable to fathom the unfathomable betrayal by the person he had considered as dear to him as Bella herself. Edward could only look on in somber silence, giving Kenneth this moment to process the gut-wrenching revelation. For in that agonizing instant, Kenneth realized that the nightmare was far from over. Though he may have been innocent, real justice for Bella's murder would mean confronting her own flesh and blood as the vile architect of her demise. At first, when interrogated by Edward, Linda vehemently denied any involvement in her sister's murder. She put on a performance of utter disbelief and feigned victimhood. "How dare you accuse me of such an evil act?" Linda cried out, her eyes brimming with dishonest tears. "Bella was my baby sister, my best friend. I loved her." But as Edward persisted, methodically laying out the damning evidence piece by piece, Linda's facade began to crack. The financial records, video footage, the money trail, it all inextricably linked her to the grisly crime. Finally, as the last threads of her intricate lies unraveled, Linda's expression contorted. The mask of faux innocence gave way to a chilling look of depraved acceptance. "It was all for Kenneth," Linda stated coldly. "You have no idea how obsessively I loved that man, even before he and Bella ever met." Memories surfaced of Linda constantly finding excuses to be around Kenneth, bringing him homemade meals, dropping off meaningless gifts. She longed for any tiny shred of his affection and attention. But then Bella came into the picture, sweeping Kenneth off his feet. The more smitten he became with Bella, the more depraved Linda's jealousy grew. "He barely noticed me once he had her," Linda snarled with poorly concealed contempt. "My sweet, beautiful sister who could do no wrong in his eyes." In Linda's warped mind, poisoned by her entitlement and fixation, that made Bella a threat that needed eliminating. The confrontation, premeditated and vicious, quickly escalated into violence, with Linda burying the kitchen knife deep into her own sister's body. "And Kenneth was the perfect patsy to take the fall," Kenneth admitted coldly. "With him going away for good, my sister's memory would belong to me and me alone." When Edward relayed the utterly depraved details of Linda's confession, Kenneth could only stare in stunned silence and revulsion. His Bella's life was stolen by her own flesh and blood, driven by a twisted obsession and unhinging jealousy. To Linda, he realized with a cold shudder, they were never a loving trio. He and Bella were merely objects to be possessed in her disconnected, covetous mind. The ultimate betrayal now burned away any lingering strands of kinship he felt towards her. With Linda's insanity exposed as the root cause, Kenneth could finally see a road towards rebuilding his shattered life. But the scars of deceit and loss would forever be carved into his soul. The day of reckoning had finally arrived. Linda stood before the court, a mere shell of the woman Kenneth had once trusted like family. Her eyes were hollow, devoid of any remorse over her unspeakable crimes. As the damning evidence was methodically presented, the money trail, the video footage, even her own vile confession, a collective disgust fell over the courtroom. How could someone be so consumed by jealousy and depravity to brutally murder their own flesh and blood? The judge regarded Linda with a mixture of revulsion and sadness. He somberly stated that in his decades on the bench, he had seldom encountered a case so overwhelmingly disturbing in both motive and cover-up. Linda, for her part, remained impassive and detached as the guilty verdict was delivered on charges of premeditated murder and attempted framing of an innocent man. From across the courtroom, Kenneth watched the sentencing prologue solemnly, eyes closed as memories of happier times with Bella and Linda passed through his mind. Her unspeakable betrayal had robbed him of his soulmate, but also of the loving extended family he had fantasized of building together. When the judge finally read out Linda's punishment, multiple life sentences in maximum security prison without possibility of parole, Kenneth felt neither joy nor sadness, just hollow acceptance. As for Kenneth, the court swiftly corrected the grave injustice. With an official pardon and exoneration, the jail cell door finally swung open and he walked free for the first time in what felt like an eternity. The bright sunlight stung his eyes, but its warmth caressed his skin in comforting familiarity. He was a man reborn, yet forever bearing the scars of loss and trauma. In the days that followed his release, Kenneth found himself repeatedly drawn to Bella's grave. He would sit for hours, laying fresh flowers and sharing the small, bittersweet updates about the life she was so cruelly robbed of experiencing alongside him. Though the burning anguish had slightly eased with Linda's judgment, a profound sense of vacancy would forever remain. His life's great love had been snatched away by hatred's irrational grasp. And yet, as Kenneth slowly stood up and turned to face the setting sun that fateful day, a small, albeit sad smile crept across his lips. For in his heart, he knew Bella's beautiful spirit would remain forever alive, unshackled by evil's grasp, eternally free. Though the road to complete healing would be long, that truth would be the source of his persevering strength. A reminder that love, no matter how cruelly tested, always renders hatred impotent in the end. The tragic story had finally concluded, but Bella Light would continue shining on.